Hi, everybody. Hey, so, developers, right? We are not scared of working long hours. We find tremendous pleasure when we have to work overnight to deliver a not working piece of software. But there is one thing, just one, that we, scared about. We are scared of not looking smart. We can do whatever, anything can happen, as long as me, the developer, look smart. The smartest guy, the smartest girl in the universe. And when it comes to mobile, we are terribly afraid of not looking smart. And what is that makes us not looking smart? Why on earth should we have 3, 4, 5, 6 different views of the same web page when we can have a tool, or it could be just our brains, that can turn those multiple views into just one view that can be magically adapted to just any size. So, from our perspective of smart developers, it's all about being smart or not so smart, apparently. So this is, and I like the presentation words, inspirational talk. So this is the summary. This 45 minutes of presentation will be a sort of summary of a message that, guess what, I got from my daughter. My daughter is 12, and she told me, Dad, but what's mobile that you talk about when I hear, when I hear some chunks of your business conversations? Mobile what? You mean mobile like this? My daughter uses, every kids or every human, I would say, several different devices of different sizes and different scope and ranges. So there are tablets, there are mini tablets, there are smartphones and not so powerful smartphones. There are old cells, there are computers, there are Xboxes, there are Google Glasses, there are wearable devices. Okay, there are also laptops. But everything is a device. And when we think of a website, we can no longer afford thinking of websites as a different thing. I mean, today we say, okay, we have a desktop website, a classic, regular, full website. And then we just cut off 20% of the functions, and if we are desperate, we arrange an M site. And that's it. And we call that the mobile web. My point is exactly the opposite. We still have one web. We need to have one web, but a smart form of one web that can cover all devices, the full range of devices. So I'm against M sites, or at least if we have an M site and assume that this is for smartphones, then we're going to have a T site for tablets and a G site for Google Glasses, and maybe, I don't know, O site for old cell phones, website, and so forth. So it's no longer the point of having a mobile web, but it's the time that we look ahead or make some form of lateral thinking about the web. So developers are scared of not looking smart if they thought of, oh, why should I don't want to care of user agent strings because user agent strings remind me of the time when I was younger, when my father was doing programming. And it was the time of Internet Explorer versus Netscape versus Firefox versus, some browser of 10 years ago. We were all doing code with ifs and switches and branches. Render this if the browser is, render that if the browser is. And the success of jQuery, and 70% of the code base of jQuery is about dealing with different browsers. We want, because we're smart, we want to get rid of all of this. And we want to be smart, because we want to be responsive. But why on earth are people buying so many different devices if we developers then boil it down to just, a piece of CSS? And let's have CSS arrange different views. There are browsers with CSS media queries. It's a powerful tool in the world. I have Bootstrap. I have maybe, jQuery Mobile. I have this, I have that. One view, I'm smart. I think the view once because I'm the genius. I'm the developer. And just tools. Adapting views, it's a work for tools. No. Why no? Well, performance is important, right? You agree? Okay, so now, the traffic. I'm not going to, it's pointless to show perfect numbers. By the rule of thumb, today, April 2014, the traffic towards websites is mostly 50-50. 50 for desktops and 50 from devices, not laptops. But, of course, the traffic on mobiles is going up. The traffic from desktop is expected to going down. Misconceptions. In summary, my site is good enough for mobile devices. Mobile users, because they're mobile users, they're on the go. They look like this. They expect pages to be slow. Because on the way, they have time to wait for the page to download, so they don't care. Don't worry. The site today is slow, but we'll provide an app for that to make it, to provide, don't worry, be a loyal, faithful customer. Keep on paying our services. Don't worry. We'll provide an app, an iPhone app, a comfortable Android application one day. We're working on that. We're on that. You're the mobile user. So, don't care about user interface. Just be concerned about doing your own things. Focus on business, not on the user interface or the time it takes to download. You're a mobile user, so pinch and zoom. That's your job. Okay, a few of them will provide an app. Good. Fantastic point. Excellent point. But how many apps are you going to provide? Web is device neutral. With a well-done website, you're okay. The first step is done. You can really think of, yes, we can add on top of a well-done, business-focused mobile app. Okay, we provide an app. Fantastic. But how written? Hybrid? So half web, half native? Entirely native? It depends. Both options are good. Pros and cons. It depends. Personally, I had a project 2 years ago for a time-sensitive event. Basically, it was an app, 4 flavors of an app, including BlackBerry, which was supposed to be up and running the 1st of May. We started 3 months ahead of the time, and we were supposed to use PhoneGap, so a hybrid solution, and we quoted one app 4 times. Except that when the customer saw the first prototype, he says, no way I'm going to have this. It's too slow. Okay, it was 2 years ago. Okay, so PhoneGap was not even Cordoba, and a lot of the technology improvements didn't happen yet. But the hybrid solution has a strict, technological boundary. It cannot do much better than. So native is all another story. But when it comes to native, okay, there's Xamarin, fantastic. It allows you to unite the effort under a single language and to the amount that it is possible a single SDK. Yeah, but a native app is an effort. I mean, if you need to go out on business, you cannot reasonably wait to have all possible apps out there. So the web is your first step, your first move. Ensure, safe, lock your web device neutral, and then you take the time to focus on adding like icing on cake. First have the cake, and then put icing on top of that. And native apps, as I say things, is just the icing on top of the cake. And why? Because user experience does matter. So an iPhone user, an Android user, they do want to have an experience that is in line with what they expect and they are used to do with other apps. But for developers, from the developers and business perspective, focusing exclusively on apps, it could be problematic. Because when you say Android, you say the universe. You know, how many different Android devices are out there? Millions. And an Android device is my daughter's phone as well as my phone. And there's quite a bit of difference in the range of capabilities. Yes, capabilities. Even when devices belong to the same class, the same category, which could be smartphone. You know, what is a smartphone exactly? This is a fundamental question. So, okay, device profiles, but also capabilities of individual devices. My site is good. It's good enough on mobile devices. Okay, how about latency? The latency is the interval between requests and responses. It can be up to 300 milliseconds. Connection. How about that? 3G can be 15 times slower than Wi-Fi. And 4G is not a feature that common. And more importantly, you have no control over these things. You just, happen to place your app running in a context where these numbers, latency, connection, are totally out of your control. So, my strategy can be summarized in 2 steps. 1, make sites accessible to devices. Think of devices, which means recognizing and intelligently serving classes of devices. Number 2, once you have locked a content that can be successfully viewed and consumed on most devices, provide an app on top of that to serve better users for some platforms. So if numbers tell you that you have a 70% of iPhone or iOS users, you might want to focus on providing, that's your second step, or Android or Windows Phone or this or that. You know what? In summary, it's all about device detection, which is exactly a complete turnaround from what I said at the beginning that makes developers feel smart. A developer feels smart if he can write one view to serve multiple devices. And even smarter if he can manage to force CSS and browsers to work for him. That's the triumph of smartness. Device detection, that's a thing of the past. That's what my dad was using to do when he was doing programming, or my grandma. It's not what me, a modern web developer, do. It's all about device detection instead. If you want to move from the mobile web to device web, it's all about device detection. Responsive web design is precisely the background, what supports the idea that you can have one view that responsively adapts to multiple devices. But, technically speaking, what is responsive web design all about? It is, first, based on CSS media queries, which is, in the end, conditional CSS style sheets, automatically applied by browsers. Second point, it's about proportional layout, which means that you create your HTML, your markup, using concepts like fluid grids, which is essentially blocks, divs, percentage based. You don't give a fixed width or height, mostly width, to those divs, but you use percentages. Everything is rendered in terms of percentage, so relatively based on the container. And the combination of the two gives you visual breakpoints, which is, okay, I'm going to have a CSS that I conditionally apply if the width of the screen is between, and you provide a range. So up to 480 pixels, this is design 1. Between 480 and 800 pixels, it's design 2, and so forth. These are visual breakpoints. These are the foundation of responsive web design. But, and here is just a piece of code that shows you what I mean. So the point is the media attribute of the link element you use to attach conditionally a CSS to a page. So max width and only screen. But I invite you to consider what we have right here. So there are very, very, very few parameters that allow you to control the condition. So responsive web design is about conditionally applying CSS. So there is a condition, a Boolean condition, an expression that you write there through a media attribute. But there is no condition, logically, if you don't have parameters that you use in the expression. And what's the input data you have to base your decision on? Mostly 1. Okay, officially this is the list, according to the CSS media queries standards. This is the list of properties you currently can look at. Device width, device height, width and height of the browser's window, orientation, aspect ratio for the browser's window and the device. Essentially, it's all about the width. So you have one piece of information, the size of the width size of the container of your content. And now it's true that when you say my container is 800 wide, it's correct to say that, well, it can be rendered, the content can be rendered in the same way, regardless it is my laptop or a tablet. Except that a tablet may be used connected on your office or home Wi-Fi or not. And when we move to smartphones, when you have a window 480 pixels, yes, it can be your browser window resized to stay in a corner of your wide, enormous screen, or it can be this. But, physics is not. We are in the Institute of Science. But physics is not something that can be cheated about, right? So 4-inch is 4-inch. It's a different size, right? It's not the same. You can say, well, but I'm responsive. You can be as responsive as you want, but you can hardly fit a content that comfortably stays in this area into this. No way. So 480 is one thing, it's 480 on a desktop, it's all another, it's 480 pixels on a smartphone. And so my question is, where does mobile really fit in responsive web design? And the answer is, it doesn't fit. There is no idea of mobile. There were no ideas of mobile kind of things in responsive web design. It was just a methodology or whatever, a combination of tricks and technologies created by smart guys to make the browsing experience pleasant and beautiful, but just the browsing experience. And the idea behind responsive web design was so smart that it could be adapted to mobile for quite some time. But I think that today, and looking ahead, the best thing you can do for yourself as developers and your companies and your customers is looking ahead. It's no longer the time to look into responsive web design as the only way out to build the mobile web. So it's not about HTML5. Who cares? I mean, okay, knowing HTML is important, is still important, because in the end, even when you do device detection, as I'm going to show in 3 seconds, in the end, you still serve up HTML. So, and mobile browsers, even on smartphones, they are the best browsers today that can do HTML5. So knowing about what you can do with HTML5 is still has a lot of importance. It's important to know about the web forms, the input types, tel, number, email, that's fundamental kind of thing. It's important to know about semantic tags. It's important to know about what you can do script-wise. So HTML5 is important, but not as a second point to look at after you did device detection. So why server-side solutions? So where you detect from the user agent, understand what is the device, why those solutions seem scary to some developers. Yeah, it's because of this. That's scary. That's a scary kind of thing. I have no idea. I mean, well, you're not smart. I'm a smart developer. Dino, you're a kid. Maybe you're not so smart. I can take that string, and I can run a regular expression, maybe, or just a stupid, silly string manipulation function, check whether it contains Android, and I know that it's mobile. Except that Android 4 can be smartphone or tablet. Maybe Android 4.0. Android 3 is for sure a tablet. Android 4, I don't know. And even if Android 2, it could be, I mean, on this device, which was called a smartphone once, I still have Android 2.3. I'm sorry, 2.2 actually. Not even gingerbread. My daughter has a toy Android phone with Android 2.3. So if I look at the operating system, my phone, my daughter's phone, which is a toy, all that you can do is just surfing the web. And my smartphone, even looking at the operating system, I have a wrong message because it seems that my daughter's phone is much better than mine, which is not true. So just Android means nothing. But even if you look at the operating system versions close to Android, you need a bit of logic to figure out what's going on. And extracting Android, checking whether it contains Android is it's easy. But extracting the operating system version requires a less trivial regular expression, and you need a bit of logic on top of that. And I totally agree that then doing device detection is scary, but not because something appears to be hard. You have to avoid that. So it's all about user agent strings, but it's also all about doing that with expert help. No way out. I mean, I'm personally involved in one of those frameworks, which happens to be the de facto standards, because Facebook uses Würfel, Google uses Würfel, Amazon uses Woofle. PayPal uses Woofle. Akamai uses Woofle. This is why I took the liberty of putting de facto standards over there. But there are other options, and none is free. Woofle is, by the way, open source. So if you work on an open source project, it's well free. But you need to do user agent detection on the server side using expert help. So it's not about you writing your own logic for understanding user agents. Use a tool. A tool, whether Woofle or other tools, Device Atlas, for example, they essentially work keeping track of a dictionary like this. There's a user agent, just a plain string as a key, and then there is a list of capabilities which can be as easy as a JSON array of, name, value, name, value, name, value. So this is the structure of databases. But it's the expert help, it's the service you buy that manages this database for you. Your only responsibility is buying a cloud contract in which you only call a service, or if you want to arrange your own on-premise solution, your only responsibility is applying weekly changes. So install a new copy of the database weekly. That's it. And then your code will keep on working and recognizing and detecting and correctly classifying new devices as new devices hit the market. The importance of having device-specific views. Now, this is my hand, and this is my phone. The picture was taken a couple of weeks ago. I think it was the first Sunday of April. Okay, I'm a tennis fanatic. So it was the weekend where the quarterfinals of the Davis Cup were held. India was involved in some way, I think, also. No, I think you will be running a playoff in September. I don't know. Doesn't matter anyway. So this was a screenshot that shows, the status of a match. There's nothing wrong with that, except that this picture was taken 5 minutes later than this one. And what's the difference? I think you can see it. I'm not sure if you can really look into this, but these are not numbers. This is code. Maybe it shows better here. So it's just like having, instead of cigarettes, a phone. Smoking kills, except that it's not smoke, but it's maybe AngularJS. So this is what happens when you have too much AngularJS or Knockout or whatever it is on a mobile site. It could be that, over a slow 3G or in an area in which 3G is not good for whatever reason. I was in the heart of Rome when I took those pictures. So I was not in the middle of the desert, just heart of Rome. So when you have too much script, or by chance you are subject to conditions, runtime conditions you don't control, web performance is really important. But web performance, is not, you have to put your scripts at the bottom of the page, or you have to use gzip, or you have to minify, or you have to, it's all of this. But there is more substance. Don't do stupid things. Okay? Now, we can say that, but it's, doesn't matter. 5 minutes later, you could see what was the score of the match, but It was 5 minutes later. So anyway, it's not AngularJS or Knockout. It's just devices. Serving intelligent markup. Now, what kind of apps, web apps, do you write? I would say that typically there are two big families of web apps. There are single-page applications, in which you have a lot of JavaScript running on the client, and there are classic ASP.NET or PHP or Java or more, Python maybe, server-side apps essentially. Now, if you do client-side code, this library, Vue4JS, which is, by the way, completely free with no strings attached. It's free to use, period. This one, which was released in February, so it's very recent kind of thing, at the sole cost of adding that script in your pages, so the result of evaluating this JavaScript, it delivers this object dynamically to your client pages, and the form factor property of Vue4 tells you whether it's a smartphone, desktop, tablet. Check the documentation. 5 or 6 different values. The form factor of the device. It's in the DOM, and if you are writing single-page applications, at the cost of exactly 0, whatever is the currency, just 0, you can do smart coding client-side and serve intelligent markup. Which could mean, for example, that even if you have a JavaScript-intensive page, you switch off from Angular and just, maybe just use a piece of JavaScript that creates HTML strings on the fly, which is anyway faster because you don't have to download, and more importantly, you don't have to parse, because Angular does a lot of parsing. It's its job. And if you are doing things on the server side, CSS is not, Bootstrap, anybody doing CSS, is not omnipotent. So the key point is that nobody can afford slow mobile pages. Be specific, serve fast, and let me show you briefly what I mean using ASP.NET NDC. So this is an ASP.NET NDC application. Let me show you what I mean. Computer is, the site is not available on desktop browsers. Try using a mobile or tablet browser. And that is the user agent that Internet Explorer sent. But now, if I just click F12, and I play a little bit with the user agent's string selector up here, this gives me the great chance of showing you what happens, and it's the same website up and running, if I happen to tell Internet Explorer, hey, look, make a second request, but send, instead of your standard user agent, send the user agent of an Apple Sapphire iPad. So as soon as I click the button now, the page will refresh, and the effect to my code in the back gets the user agent of an iPad. And this is what happens. Whoop, magical. Same URL, same everything. But now the code detected it's a tablet making the request, and it reacted properly. But it's even nicer if I make another change, and select maybe Windows Phone. Internet Explorer is not perfect, so let me resize this to give you an idea of, that is more or less what you can expect. It's a different UI, where features have been rearranged, but it's the same page, same URL, same everything. And I can go one step further and select a custom. This is the user agent of my daughter's toy Android phone. Yeah. And this is what you can expect to have. So we have 3-4 different views out of the same page. Yeah, it's exactly what I don't want to do because I'm a smart developer. It's just about using a different tool. Instead of relying on browsers and CSS media queries, you rely on ASP.NET MVC or ASP.NET and display modes, which is a feature that has been backed into the framework. Instead of having conditional style sheets, you have conditional views. Instead of writing multiple CSS, you write multiple razor files if you are doing ASP.NET. If you are not doing ASP.NET, well, yeah, the responsibility of doing the view routing, so if you do PHP, for example, that's your responsibility. But it's also a great challenge for you if you are active in the PHP community. I'm aware that there are a few projects going around to implement this view router. It's free and baked into ASP.NET since version 4 of MVC and ASP.NET, so it's already there. And just to finish off the presentation, just let me give you just glimpses of the source code. This is a globalized X. And in globalized X, I'm using Woodfold in this Woodfold, which is through NuGet, and you can today connect, download the Woodfold package for NuGet. It's free for your testing. Only in the moment in which you go on production, you probably need a license, but until then, it's completely free for you for testing and playing with. So I initialize the Woodfold library, and then I set up my code in ASP.NET to register essentially 4 different modes: smartphone, tablet, legacy, desktop. For each of those display modes, all I have to do is defining a context condition and a suffix. The suffix, which is a string I'm totally responsible for, the suffix just indicates the suffix to the razor view file. So instead of having just index.cshtml, I'm going to have an index.legacy, index.smartphone, index.this, and I decide the name of the suffix. So legacy is my code, it's my magic string, right? And the context condition here indicates given C is the HTTP context. I run my own code, and it's true if the HTTP context, so the user agent, makes the request coming from the legacy device, a tablet, a smartphone, and so forth. And beyond this code, which runs just in globalized X, in application start, the next thing I have to do is having in my views different files, right? Index, index.legacy, index.smartphone, and so forth. I, of course, multiply views. But each view is completely independent. There are no strings attached. It's just like having, yes, multiple websites, except that you create each page individually. You reuse, of course, all of your application layer, all of your domain layer. Everything is completely the same. It's totally the same. It's one website, actually, just different HTML files, each of which is independent. So you can run in, you You can even use responsive web design in each of these independently. And by the way, smartphone means a number of things also. So when you say smartphone, it could be a smartphone like this or a smartphone like this. So responsive web design, even in the context of a smartphone, makes totally sense. It can help you serving better devices. Orientation from CSS media queries is the only way to safely detect when the device is reoriented, moves from portrait to landscape. So you need responsive web design to change, to switch to a different views. So the two things can be and must be combined together. Bottom line, as I say things, server side is always better from now onward instead of responsive web design, primarily for bandwidth reasons. So serving markup intelligently is a must, and native apps just live on top of the web. Thank you very much for your time.